Hello, today I'll tell you about the US economy and another form of economic regulation. So, antitrust law seeks to strengthen market forces so that direct regulation is unnecessary. The government and sometimes private parties have used antitrust law to prohibit practices or mergers that would unduly limit competition. The government is also exercises control over private companies to achieve social goals such as protecting the public's health and safety or maintaining a clean and healthy environment. The US Food and Drug Administration bans harmful drugs. For example, the Occupation Safety and Health Administration protects workers from hazards they may encounter in their jobs. In the Environmental Protection Agency seek to control water and air pollution. American attitudes about regulation changed substantially during the final 3 decades of the 20th century. Beginning in the 1970s, policy market grew increasingly concerned that economic regulation protected inefficient companies at the expense of consumers in industries such as airlines and trucking. At the same time, technological changes spawned new competitors in some industries, such as telecommunication, that once were considered natural monopolies, and both development led to a successful of-laws regulation. While leaders of both political parties generally favored economic regulation during the 1970s, 1980s, and 19th, there was less agreement concerning regulations designed to achieve social goals. Social regulation has assumed growing importance in the years following the Depression and World War II, and again in the 1916 and 17. But during the presidency of Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, the government relaxed rules to protect workers, consumers, and environment, arguing that regulation interfered with free enterprise, increased the cost of doing business, and thus contributed to inflation. Still, many Americans continued to voice concerns about specific events or trends, promoting the government to issue new regulation in some areas, including environmental protection. Some citizens, meanwhile, have turned to the courts when they feel their elected officials are not addressing certain issues quickly and strongly enough. For instance, in the 1990s, individuals and eventually government itself sued tobacco companies over the health risk of cigarette smoking. A large financial settlement provided states with long-term payments to cover medical costs to treat smoking-related illnesses. Let's talk about direct services. Each level of government provides many direct services. The federal government, for example, is responsible for national defense, backs research, and often leads to the development of new products, conducts space exploration, and runs numerous programs designed to help workers develop workplace skills and find jobs. Government spending has a significant effect on local and regional economies, and even on the overall piece of the economic activity. State governments, meanwhile, are responsible for the construction and maintenance of most highways. State, county, or city governments play the leading role in the financing and operating public schools. Local government are primarily responsible for the police and fire protection. Government spending in each of these areas can also affect local and regional economies, although federal decisions generally have the greatest economic impact. Overall, federal, state, and local spending accounted for almost 18% of gross domestic product in 1997. Government also provided many kinds of help to business and individuals. It offers low-interest loans and technical assistance to small businesses, and it provides loans to help students after college. Government-sponsored enterprises buy some mortgage from lenders and tourism into securities that can be bought and sold by investors, thereby encouraging home lending. Government also actively promotes exports and seeks to prevent foreign continuous countries from maintaining trade barriers that restrict imports. Government supports individuals who cannot adequately care for themselves. Social Security, which is financed by a tax on employers and employees, accounts for the larger portion of Americans' retirement. The Medicare program pays for many of the medical costs of the elderly. The medical program finances medical care for low-income families. In many states, government maintains institutions for the mentally ill or people with severe disabilities. The federal government provides food stamps to help poor families obtain food, and the federal and state governments jointly provide welfare grants to support low-income parents with children. Many of these programs, including Social Security, trace their roots to the New Deal program of Franklin D. Roosevelt, who served as the U.S. president from the 1933 to 1945. Key to Roosevelt's reforms was a belief that poverty usually resulted from social and economic causes, rather than from failed personal morals. This view repudiated a common notion whose roots lay in the New England's Puritanism, that success was a sign of God's favor and failure a sign of God's displeasure. This was an important transformation in American social and economic thought. Even today, however, echoes of the older notions are still heard in the debates around certain issues, especially welfare. Many other assistance programs for individuals and families, including Medicare and Medicaid, were begun in the 1960s during President Lyndon Johnson's War or Poverty. Although some of these programs encountered financial difficulties in the 1990s and various reforms were proposed, they continued to have strong support from both of the United States' major political parties. Critics argued, however, that providing welfare to unemployed but healthy individuals actually created dependency rather than solving problems. Welfare reform legislation enacted in 1996 under President Bill Clinton requires people to work as a condition of receiving benefits and imposes limits on how long individuals may receive payments. Poverty and inequality. Americans are proud of their economic system, believing that it provides opportunities for all citizens to have good lives. Their faith is clouded, however, by the fact that poverty persists in many parts of the country. Government anti-poverty efforts have made some progress, but have not eradicated the problem. Similarly, periods of strong economic growth, which bring more jobs and higher wages, have helped reduce poverty, but have not limited it entirely. The federal government defines a minimum amount of income necessary for basic maintenance of a family of four. This amount may fluctuate depending on the cost of living and the location of the family. In 1998, a family of four with an annual income below 16,000 was classified as living in poverty. So that's all for today. Goodbye.